Good morning, students. Today we shall take up the poem Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. This is in your class 12 English book Flamingo. Pablo Neruda is the pen name of Neftali Ricardo Recius Basualto, who was born in the town of Parral in Chile. Neruda's poems, children, are full of easily understood images which make them no less beautiful. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1971. He is often considered the national poet of Chile, and his works have been popular and influential worldwide. In this particular poem, Keeping Quiet, he talks about the necessity of quiet introspection and creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. Before we go on to the recitation and explanation of the poem, let's quickly interpret this title. In this busy, fast-paced life with so much of restlessness and unrest around, man has lost the ability to appreciate nature, to keep his calm and stay composed in turbulent situations. So, in this particular poem, Keeping Quiet, the poet urges the reader to keep quiet, still, and count till 12 in order to do some introspection. This is definitely going to help him in understanding the purpose, the real objective of life, and which automatically will help him in understanding himself. All right, let us start the recitation and simultaneously explanation of the same. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. So in these two lines in the beginning of the poem, the poet says, we will count to 12. Now the poet has used the word we in order to help us achieve a sense of togetherness. So he tells the reader to count till 12 and keep still. This is an antithesis, children. He is asking us to take up an activity of counting till 12, and at the same time, he is also telling us to stay still. So, what will counting up to 12 and keeping still help us achieve? Well, in these lines, the emphasis is on introspection. The poet asks everyone in the world to be still and at rest. What does this imply? Okay, this implies that they take out some time from their mundane activities of life for quiet introspection. Most of the miseries and sufferings are due to impulsive actions. So, keeping quiet and still will give us respite, and in a way, it will ensure peace. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. So the poet asks the readers to not speak their different languages because according to him, different languages will only divide and create rifts. So he tells them to stop and not move or flay their arms pointlessly in agitated motion. Okay. So he is basically talking about suspension of all kinds of activities. For instance, of harming the environment or indulging in violent acts or destruction. Okay. So the poet wants his readers to put a halt on all these activities which are violent or destructive. So not move our arms so much in this particular line. He is basically telling telling his readers to stop any kind of agitated motion, to stop any senseless rushing, and thereby stop all kinds of violence. Okay. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. So the poet says that it would be an exotic moment in which everyone will be quiet, where there will be no commotion, clamor of vehicles. So this particular moment will be an exotic moment, a moment that will bring everyone together in a manner that is sudden, unexpected, and unusual. So the poet calls it strange because this will be something which will be experienced for the first time. You can observe there is alliteration in sudden strangeness, and there is also repetition over there in the lines above, without rush, without engines. Okay, so without engines refers to without any commotion or sound or clamor of vehicles. Okay. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Hurt hands is again an alliteration. Fishermen here, children, symbolize man's indiscriminate exploitation of nature for his own vested interests. So the poet says that fishermen in the cold sea, this is again an imagery, will stop killing the hapless whales, and the man who gathers salt will pause and look at his wounded hands. So, what does the poet say about the fisherman and the man gathering salt here? Let us try to understand. The poet feels that it would be a productive activity in which the fishermen would not be killing whales, and the men employed in gathering salt would have time to give respite to their injured hands. So man would pause, this is what the poet feels. He would look at the destruction that has been caused to the environment as a result of his own selfish deeds, and in the process even he has harmed himself. So he would look at this destruction that has been caused to the environment as a result of his own selfish deeds. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. In these lines, the poet wants all the people in the world to stop their destructive activities and introspect. Here, he talks of green wars, which refers to people who wage wars against the environment. For instance, it can refer to deforestation, fishing, or even mining. People are indulging in all kinds of destructive activities. The poet wants them to put an end to this insane, mindless killing. And instead, he says they should put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. So he says that when there is a war, yes, war causes irreparable loss. It gives an illusion of victory, but it is not a victory. It is tragic because both the victor and the vanquished are wiped out. So here the poet says that he would like everyone to stop fighting. He would like everyone to stop waging these wars against the environment and against each other, because war causes irreparable loss. This particular line, children, victory with no survivors, is a paradox. And in the last four lines, the poet basically wants everyone to shed their hostilities. And when he says put on clean clothes, what is he trying to signify here? He is trying to tell us that we should start afresh. We should start anew. We should stop this bloodshed and be instead should walk hand in hand in harmony with our brothers. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. The poet in these lines feels that we merely exist. We do not understand the true meaning of life. And then he says that I do not want you to get confused. Okay? The poet cautions his readers to not confuse or mistake stillness and silence with total inactivity, because total inactivity means death. Okay, then he says, life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. In these lines, he wants to say that life is not mere existence, but living it to the fullest. What does this mean? This means that we have to understand the true meaning of life. And how can we attain this? How can we understand this? How can we understand the true objective, the true purpose of life? This can be attained by introspection. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. In these lines, the poet says, man is engrossed in various hectic activities and is constantly busy in thinking about his future. So, the fast paced lifestyle does not allow us to attain everlasting happiness. This ceaseless motion of his life does not lead to any everlasting happiness. So, the poet wishes that for once, when he says, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness. Now, the sadness is because we are unable to decipher, we are unable to understand the true meaning of life. So, the poet wishes that for once people should stop this frantic activity. He wants them to attain quietude that will remove their sadness. So, hope you understand the reason behind this sadness, children. People are engulfed in a sadness that is caused due to the fact that they do not understand the true meaning and real objective of life. The agitated direction in which they are rushing only leads to their destruction and ruination. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. Now you must be wondering as to what is the difference between the first two lines and the last two lines. Yes, the difference is that in the first two lines of the poem, the poet has used the word we. Now we will count up to 12. But towards the end of the poem, in these last lines, he has not used the word we. Instead, he says I. Okay, why? Because he feels that now his mission has been accomplished. He is not required anymore, and whatever he wanted to achieve has been achieved. Now let us go back to the previous three lines. Perhaps the earth can teach us. Now, earth can teach us, so earth is personified also. And the poet has invoked this symbol of earth for there is a purpose for it. There is a purpose behind it. Let us try to understand what is the purpose. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. So the poet has invoked the symbol of earth. The earth is quiet, still, peaceful. It appears to be lifeless, and yet it nurtures life in this particular motionlessness. Its silence is also productive. It is a mighty force that creates life. For instance, when a seed falls into the earth, it appears as if it has died. But at the same time, what is happening over there? It grows into a plant which bears fruit. It also gives shade and helps the environment. So what is the purpose behind invoking this symbol of earth? I hope you have understood. The poet wants to begin his mission of giving our lives a thought so that we can be also productive in our silence, just like nature or Mother Earth. I hope you understood the poem, and a quick recapitulation. The poem is written in free verse, children, and these are the poetic devices which we have discussed. Antithesis was in the beginning, alliteration is there in various places. Repetition is also there. Imagery, the image has been, there was an image of cold sea. Symbolism, earth has been, the symbol of earth has been used, it has been invoked in the last stanza, and earth again has been personified. Now, the symbolism of the word 12. The word 12 symbolizes a measure of time representing our clock time in real life, capturing a moment from our present time. So, the poet has expressed the need to live in peaceful harmony with nature. He wants us to shed all kinds of destructive activities, whether it is against the environment or against each other. There is an urgent need for man. So this is the main objective of the poem. This is the main theme around which the poem revolves, that there is an urgent need for man to introspect, as it will help him understand the real purpose or objective of life. That was all, children. Thank you so much.